Hi, I'm Mark Severin. We are at Scale Creep Miniatures, a miniature and toy soldier business of mine here in Evanston, Illinois. The hobby is the recreation of battles using essentially toy soldiers. The hobbyists buy the toy soldiers, the terrain, the trees, collect and paint it all, and then we'll get together with their friends and refight a battle using all the materials they've collected. There's not a genre, time period, army, or event you can think of that we probably can't get some miniatures on the table and let you refight it and see if you can do better than Meade did at Gettysburg or Caesar did at Alesia. You can't name a war or a battle. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Near future, there's a lot of guys will run what-if scenarios. What if Russia and the West had gone to war in 1985? Great Pacific War. South American War. If you live in Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, you've heard of that. It was an important part of your history. The Mexican-American War, the Civil War. Pretty much, if two guys got in a fist fight, there's probably rules, miniatures, and stuff to cover it. Naval, air, space, you name it. I know a gentleman who's doing a project, if you've seen some of the James Bond movies with the scuba divers fighting each other, he's got scuba diver figures and the little jet ski underwater submarine things that they used, and he's doing an underwater battle. So, whatever you can think up. There are regular groups that meet. There's one that I'm connected with over in Wheaton, Illinois. They meet every Monday night, and they'll play all kinds of things. Most of the clubs and groups tend to have a fairly broad set of interests: science fiction, fantasy, historical. And in many ways, it's a very social hobby, the getting together to refight the battles and play the games. A lot of guys will play anything that anyone will run because they're there to hang out with their friends and have a beer and sort of have a good time. This is the ultimate Monday morning quarterback hobby. If I had been in charge at Gettysburg, we would have won, or we wouldn't have, that kind of thing. So the rules of the game are essentially a way for you to determine how things happen, but you get to make the decisions. That's the appeal. So instead of Pickett's charge, would you have done something else? Well, the rules will tell you based on your ground scale, and it sounds like an old math word problem. If 3 inches on the tabletop is half a mile and men march at 3 miles an hour, how long does it take them to get from point A to point B? The rules are there to enable you to make the decisions that the commanders would have faced at the time. Where do you put your reserves? Do you send the cavalry in first? How do you do that? And you use dice, so there's a random element too. You charge with your cavalry. You don't know how successful you're going to be. In some ways, it's very much like making the same decisions as the commanders would have made. And that's the idea: is given the situation, what would you have done? And typically, the situation is, as of that morning, where were the Union troops, where were the rebel troops, where were the orcs and the elves, whatever the case may be. And then from there, you make all the decisions. So it's not like following a script of, well, the next thing that happens is, General Smith moved up. No, you decide. We typically play in groups, so you'll have an overall commander. He'll issue orders to his 3 or 4 friends who are his subordinates. He'll hope they follow them. He'll hope they know what they're doing. And you see how it turns out. Sometimes you get a very definitive, it's like chess, you won or you lost. You wiped out the other guys. Usually with a scenario, you've got an objective. So it might be take the hill, take the town, it might be capture the other guy's general, whatever the case may be. But sometimes for whatever reason, you get to the end of the night, it's sort of late, and you haven't got a definitive answer as to who won or who lost. The kibitzing over that last beer is, part of the whole fun of, oh no, I had you, I was gonna do this, and of course your opponent on the other side of the table is like, yeah, but I was going to do that. But most of the time, it's pretty clear at the end of the night who won and who lost. The bragging right's really about how much and how brilliant you were or not. If you have a vague understanding of how the combat worked, which is generally fairly easy to explain, and the rules generally limit you in some ways. For example, in the Civil War, men marched shoulder to shoulder, operated in big blocks, lines of men. You can't then split them up and have them scatter all over the countryside like they did in World War II. The rules will prohibit that. Usually, the person running the game knows a fair amount about it, and so they'll sort of walk you through. So I've played a lot of periods, games, where I may know sort of, the history at the very high level of, Rome versus Carthage. But in terms of the types of troops and how they actually fought and what the actual tactics were, not much at all. Generally, people get into periods they have a natural interest in anyway. You see Band of Brothers and say, that would be a cool game. So you look into World War II, you do a little reading. But the more you have, I think sort of the richer the game experience is. But at the end of the day, it's a game. So you can, I always say, I'll play whatever you're running. You got a good bunch of guys around the table. We'll have a couple of beers and, refight whatever it is. And a lot of times, I'll play, I played a space game, Babylon 5. I don't watch Babylon 5. I don't know who these fleets are. I don't know who the spaceships, I don't know what they're supposed to represent. We had a grand old time. It's okay with me. So it helps to know a little bit, but you don't have to have a PhD in World War II small unit tactics to have a good time. I describe this as 3 hobbies in one. The first part of the hobby is kind of the research and the reading. The second part of the hobby is the modeling hobby. It's buying all the forces and the buildings and the terrain and putting that together and painting it, and just like building model airplanes or model railroads or anything else. And then the third part is the actual gaming. For me, there are a couple of periods that are really compelling. The Napoleonic Wars, the vast scope and sweep. There's so many different kinds of units and battles. The uniforms are outrageously colorful. If you've seen a marching band, that's what the Napoleonic Wars look like. People marched around in bright blue and green and braid and buttons and lace. So it's just a spectacular looking period. I love the Civil War era, very interested in that. I play a number of other things. I like Lord of the Rings a lot. I've read that. I love the movies. But I'm one of those who, if it's a nice looking game and it's a bunch of my friends, it's not that important at the end of the day what the soldiers are. Usually best to look for a local group and hook up and play with their playing. It's a way to try before you buy. Another way is there are conventions, we call them, and we've got 2 coming up here in the Chicago area. One is called Legends in the Spring. It'll be in Wakanda, Illinois on April 12th. And the other is called Little Wars. It'll be out at the DuPage Exposition Center the last weekend in April, the 25th. For this hobby, theminiaturespage.com is a great resource. All kinds of news announcements and message boards for any period you're interested in. So if you thought you might like to try World War II, head over to the World War II message boards and sort of poke around. There's more choices than you can shake a stick at. So really it's about hooking up with a local group and starting from there. You can reach me online at scalecreep.com or phone 847-859-6669. The shop here is open by appointment or by chance if you stop by, but I advise you call first.